Ladies and gentlemen, we're so glad you're here today. I am Bobby Burns, President and CEO, and I can't talk all of a sudden, excuse me. I'm Bobby Burns, President and CEO of the Midland Chamber of Commerce, and we're thrilled to see real people again. It's nice to have you here and to welcome you to the Chamber's 2020 annual meeting presented by Hilliard Office Solutions and co-hosted by the Midland Development Corporation. As you look around, you're going to see that many of us are seated a little further apart, and that there will be some also joining us virtually today. And there's obviously some new guidelines that we're working with. The pandemic has caused us all to stop and change many things, but one thing has not changed. Our heartfelt thanks go out to all of those who help to keep us safe. We really appreciate that. And in that vein of gratefulness, let's begin with a prayer if we can. I'm going to ask Edward Bayberry, who will be offering the invocation, if he would come up, and if you would, please stand.
Thank you, Bobby. Let's pray together. Dear God, we acknowledge you as the creator of all things. Even during tough times and times of uncertainty, God, we still believe that this is a day that you've made for us to rejoice and to be glad. We thank you so much for all of our elected officials and leaders who give of themselves so freely to ensure that we continue to have a safe, loving place to call home. We pray that you continue to give them the wisdom, the guidance to lead this city. God, we pray that Midland would be that city that's on a hill that cannot be hidden, God, that city where love drives out hate, where peace drives out fear, God, and where hope in you will never end. We thank you so much for our time together. Allow this time to be fruitful. Allow this time to be a time that brings you glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Edward. And thank you again for all of you for joining us, once again, virtually and in person. We appreciate everyone taking the time to be with us. Of course, as a chamber, we would not be here without, at this 96th annual meeting, without the generous support of hundreds of local businesses that really step up to help. And they help us create our vision of the best business environment on the planet. They do a great job. But I want to take just a moment, if I can, to say thank you to some of the businesses that are really the backbone of our city. Today, our presenting sponsor, as I said earlier, is Hilliard Office Solutions, and our thanks to Brent Hilliard and his companies. We appreciate his support. And if you would, please turn your attention to the screens for a short video from the Hilliard Group. Thank you.
Imagine you walk into work, turn on your computer, and are met with a message telling you that all your files are now encrypted. Your company has just been hit with ransomware. Every 14 seconds, a new organization will fall victim to ransomware. These and other cyber attacks cost businesses more than $75 billion a year. More than half of these attacks go undetected by antivirus software. Protect your business before it's too late. Call Hilliard Office Solutions for a free security review.
Thank you, Hilliard. And our co-host for today is the Midland Development Corporation, and we really appreciate MDC for all they do as well. And once again, turn your attention to the screens for a brief message from MDC. Thank you to MDC. We appreciate what they do. MDC has been a sponsor of our state of the economy, I would say, for at the very least 7 years and probably more than a decade. And this year they're sponsoring this as things change in this different world this time. Our VIP sponsors I want to recognize also, and that is Concho Resources, Diamondback Energy, Frost Bank, Midland Health, the Midland Reporter Telegram, Pioneer Natural Resources, and Texas Tech Health Sciences Centers. Let's give them a round of applause, if you would. We appreciate them. And in order to give you another chance to applause, let's take a look, or when you have time, take a look at our generous sponsors that are in our program today, for our table sponsors. We appreciate all these companies that step up for us. Give our table sponsors applause as well. Thank you. As we all know, Midland and Texas and America and the world has been facing new unprecedented challenges with COVID. Our elected officials and community leaders at all levels have been confronted with a global health pandemic, as well as the economic consequences of that crisis. In addition now to social unrest and issues we must deal with there. Theirs is a task not to be envied at this time in our history, but we're certainly grateful for their willingness to serve. And we're honored to have a number of these individuals here with us today. So I'd like to ask, humbly, if I could, ask all of our elected officials from our state, city, county governments, as well as Midland Memorial Hospital, Midland College, Texas Tech Health Science Center, UT Permian, and Midland Independent School District, and we have our United States Congressman here with us as well. If you'd all please stand and let us tell you thank you. And I want to take a moment to say thank you to our colleagues from Odessa, the Odessa Chamber of Commerce, for being with us today. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. We know the Permian Basin's at our strongest when we work together, and Odessa and Midland work together a lot. And Renee Henderson-Earls and her team, we really appreciate you being here. If you would, give the Odessa Chamber a round of applause as well. And stand if you would. Stand if you would. There they are. It is Odessa, so I'll make them stand last usually. So we really are glad to team up with you. Thank you for being here, Renee. In addition to our collaboration with regional partners, our Midland Chamber has an amazing legacy of leadership, really. They've got an amazing legacy of just outstanding board chairs, and their past board chairs is what I'm referring to. And we're really glad to have them here, but they really give of their time and their resources to really impact our city. But our best chairs, in my opinion, just simply represent the very best of leadership in this community. And that's really saying a lot, in my opinion. But we've got a number of our past chairs with us today, and we're honored to have them here. Would our past chairs of the chamber please rise at this moment? We would really appreciate saying thank you to you. Thank you. Well deserved, in my opinion. With that in mind, I'd like to take the time to recognize the ex officio members of our chamber board. These individuals are serving in the trenches basically every day at our taxing entities, at educational institutions, and other critical agencies. We want to leverage their expertise, and we want to work together to make Midland the best it can be with this group. And you can see their photos on the screen, but I'd like to ask all of our chamber ex officios to stand and be recognized at this time, if you would. Please stand. Thank you very much. And now I would ask our returning and incoming chamber board members, if they would, to stand at their seat and remain standing for our swearing-in ceremony. This ceremony will be conducted by the U.S. Congressman Mike Conaway, who is also a past chair, as you saw him stand, of our chamber. And on another note, our congressman will be retiring from his work in D.C. in a few months. So let's take a moment as he comes up just to say thank you, so everyone can stand on this, in my opinion, and then we'll let y'all sit down and let the chairs stay, our members. Congressman Mike Conaway. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you. Bobby, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It is good to be with you. And as he said, you saw off the screen, I chaired the chamber in 2001. I was also economic development vice chair in 98, 99. And those of you remember, that was the year the price of oil collapsed again. And we drove 5,000 or 6,000 jobs out of the community while I was economic development chair. Marvin Wynn asked me to write the section for the annual report. And as a CPA, I'm pretty blunt. And I said, well, Marvin, I'm probably going to say something about driving 6,000 or 7,000 jobs out of the community during the past year. He said, why don't you let me do the first draft? And so, but I do count the work while I was on the chamber, the work that I did, and also the relationships that I developed through that as a part of that mosaic of my background and my life experiences that I took with me to do the job as your member of Congress for the last 15 years. So not only is your service on the committee, on the chamber, important for the community, but it's also can be important individually as well. So as a board of directors of the Midland Chamber, your election represents an honor bestowed upon you by your peers, but is by no means an honorary position or a title. As Bobby shared earlier, this board provides leadership to the governing body whose policy decisions may affect every individual and every business in this area, whether they're chamber members or not. And this honor comes with great responsibility. So for our Midland Chamber, you have an obligation to regularly attend the meetings of the board, and if you're an officer, to regularly attend each executive committee meeting. You must support the positions and the goals of the organization around the boardroom. You must exercise great care to not express your personal views as those representing the Chamber's view. And you must work to be responsible for adequately financing the Chamber's programs and supporting the work of the organization. And on behalf of the Midland community, you're expected to work within the partnership that exists between government, business, and civic leaders, and you must represent the whole interest, your personal interests notwithstanding. Your service as Director of the Chamber of Commerce affords you the opportunity to become one of the most informed, well-informed members of our community. And with that responsibility, to whom much is given, much is expected. If each of you is willing to accept these obligations and responsibilities, please respond by saying, I do. All right, thank you. I hereby declare the directors of the Midland Chamber of Commerce duly installed. Thank you.
That's an old building in the background.
Well, thank you, Congressman Conaway, and congratulations to the incoming 2021 Board of Directors. And Mike, just let me take the opportunity to express my personal thanks to you for your many years of public service to our region and to our country. Thank you very, very much. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Wesley Bounds. I had to read that off this sheet because I'm not sure I remembered. And I am the outgoing chair of the board of the Midland Chamber of Commerce. I'd certainly like to take a moment to express my appreciation to Bobby Burns, the chamber staff, and my fellow board members for their support and their wholehearted devotion to the city of Midland. So thank you very much. You know, it's certainly been an interesting and a challenging year for all of us. Despite quarantine, social distancing, and this new normal that we're experiencing, your chamber has continued to serve this great city and move forward. In addition to shifting events and training content to include digital and hybrid options, the Midland Chamber has continued to lead, provide responsive solutions to current events, and advocate for the business community during the past year. And I'd like to take a few moments to share just a few of the projects and success stories of the Chamber for the past year. And I'm just going to mention a few, because if I mention all of them, my portion of the program would last longer than the mayor's speech. So I'll attempt to be brief. But among our key achievements this past year, the Midland Chamber was proud to revive a blast from the past project that has found new relevance in today's climate. And that's our Buy the Basin campaign. This effort to encourage citizens and businesses to keep our dollars in the basin was a successful partnership with the Odessa Chamber of Commerce back in the 1990s. But with the rise of the pandemic and the fall of oil prices resulting in a dramatic reduction in shopping in the area, we felt it was critical to remind people to think and shop locally before simply clicking an order from a big box online retailer. As you know, our local taxing entities rely heavily on sales tax revenue to fund various public services. We need this revenue in the basin in order to move forward. Once again, we're proud to partner with the Odessa Chamber to guide this project with the support of the City of Midland, Midland County, the Midland Development Corporation, Visit Midland, the Odessa Development Corporation, Medical Center Health System, and 9 other area chambers of commerce. We are definitely stronger together, so please, please buy the basin and remind all your friends and cohorts to buy the basin as well. You know, another critical project this year was the launch of our PermianStrong.com website. Our goal was to create a resource hub for businesses and citizens with information to navigate through all the complexities that COVID-19 brought about. In the beginning, the site highlighted modified services and hours of local shops, restaurants, grocers, and other businesses. And it also contained key governmental updates as well as health guidelines and educational resources. The site is still active today and is continually updated to provide the most relevant content to our community. So if you haven't seen it, please check it out. Also, our Visit Midland team has worked diligently to help our local tourism partners despite the reduction in travel. And you may not know this, but data shows that sports tourism typically is the first market sector to show economic recovery. Our staff focus specifically on sporting events to bring vital tourism dollars to Midland. So since May, the team was able to work with 12 different athletic groups, bringing an estimated $2 million in economic impact to our community during the summer when things were really kind of at their worst. This ability to adapt and respond has allowed our team to help the hospitality industry as well as other business sectors move forward during these challenging times. The last major project I'd like to highlight for a moment is our work with the Downtown Park Conservancy. In April 2019, the Midland Downtown Park Conservancy hosted a groundbreaking for the celebration of the Centennial Park, and now we're only a few short weeks away from the park's completion. You'll never see a park quite like it, and that's by design. The park, which covers the 2 central blocks adjacent to this building, is inspired by the gridded land patterns of West Texas and is destined to be a must-see attraction for many years to come. Centennial Park is a wonderful addition, not only to downtown Midland, but to the entire community. Upon its opening, it'll provide a premier green space and gathering space that will not only enrich the quality of place for our residents and visitors, but also act as a catalyst for social and economic growth. The Chamber is thankful to have a part in the management of the park, and we look forward to working alongside the Downtown Park Conservancy and the City of Midland to establish a place that will positively impact current and future community members. You know, without a doubt, it's been an unusual yet busy year. As always, our volunteers are extremely critical to the ongoing work that takes place at the Chamber. As an organization, we simply couldn't do what we do without the dedication and leadership of our committee chairs, and committee members. So I'd like to take a moment to thank each of our committees and committee chairs from this past year, including Ruth Peñato, Chair of our Education Committee, Diane Wright, Chair of Leadership Midland, Dr. Steve Thomas, Chair of our Governmental Affairs Group, Jessica Rule, Chair of the Tourism Commission, and Mike Denblecker, who has stepped in as Chair of our M-Squad Ambassadors. If you're part of one of these committees, would you please stand and be recognized? I hope there's somebody here. There we go. I know some of those folks are online to make room for others, so we appreciate all the work you do for the Chamber and your tremendous effort to support our community. Usually at a Chamber event, you see a number of our folks in the blue coats, and you may notice that there are fewer of those around today than normal. To encourage social distancing and limit the in-person attendance at our event today, we distributed our M-Squad Ambassador Awards last week at a smaller ceremony that was held in their honor. You'll find our above and beyond ambassadors listed in your program, so I'd appreciate it if you take a look. Those are people that are just truly critical to what we do. However, our Ambassador of the Year Award was not announced at last week's ceremony so that we could do so today. So our Ambassador of the Year Award is bestowed upon the ambassador who has demonstrated leadership and outstanding service during the last year. So it's my pleasure to announce the 2019-2020 Ambassador of the Year Award. It goes to Ruth Peñato. Ruth, are you out there somewhere? Would you please give her an applause as she comes to the stage? I bet if you knew you were going to get this, you wouldn't have sat at the back, would you? It's also my pleasure to now present the Volunteer of the Year Award. This year's Volunteer of the Year serves on the Chamber Board of Directors, the Executive Committee Board, our Governmental Affairs Committee, and is currently serving on the Leadership Midland Committee for the second time. In addition to his committee work, this person has provided expert legal feedback on countless forms and contracts for the Chamber. He also serves as the Chamber's designated appointee to the Midland-Odessa Transportation Alliance, or MOTRAN. He's volunteered with the Chamber in a variety of roles and capacities for over 6 years, and with each year, he continues to share more of his time and his talents. So it's my honor to welcome to the stage our 2020 Volunteer of the Year, Mr. Sean Rainey. Sean? There you go. The final award we'll present today is the Wynn Award. This special award is named in honor of Marvin Wynn and is presented to honor another great community leader for their contributions in the area of economic development. We are pleased to announce this year's recipient is Doug Henson. Unfortunately, Mr. Henson could not join us today, but we have put together a short video in his honor, so please turn your attention to the screens.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Grant Billingsley. I'm the Executive Director of the Scarborough Foundation, and it's my honor to be here today to present the Wynn Award. In 2017, the Midland Chamber dedicated a special annual award to honor former Chamber President Marvin Wynn for his professional career in economic development leadership in our community. Each year, Chamber leadership bestows the Wynn Award for excellence in economic development on an individual who has demonstrated both leadership and achievement in the area of local community economic development by enhancing lives, strengthening the community, and overcoming obstacles. I am truly honored today to present the 2020 Wynn Award to this year's recipient, a longtime friend who has been a teacher, a mentor, and a trailblazer in Midland's economic development over the past 50 years, Doug Henson. Doug grew up in Midland and was a cornerstone of the Economic Development Department of the former First National Bank of Midland in the early 1970s and through 1980s. Doug gave so much time to the local economic development activities that many people thought he was employed by the Chamber. And I should know because I was employed by the Chamber. Doug was one of Midland's earliest certified economic developers, and he was involved in many, many bank initiatives in those days helping our community, including the expansion of the bank tower from 8 to 24 stories, development of the Midland Hilton, now the DoubleTree, helping revitalize Main Street, and putting together a super block of downtown property between the bank and Front Street. And as I said before, Doug was a quasi-staff member of the Midland Chamber of Commerce helping in economic development. And he was a key volunteer in creating and managing the Industrial Foundation of Midland and its first major project, the Midland Industrial Park. Most often, with Doug's assistance and leadership, the Midland Industrial Park became the site for such diversified firms as Levi Strauss, UPS, International Harvester, Terraco Core Laboratories, Tidwell Mobile Homes, Centralift, Leidig Roofing, and the Texas Department of Public Safety. One of his greatest achievements was the location of a major manufacturing facility for Texas Instruments at the intersection of Farm Road 1788 and Interstate 20. After leaving the First National Bank, Doug partnered with members of the Scarborough family to form SBC Corporation that would plan and develop some of the family-owned land west of the city. He coordinated a multi-use master plan for much of the land that exists west of Loop 250, west to 1788. Now I want you to think about that, folks. Think about what you know as you're driving west on 191 and all you see north and south of Loop 250. I'm going to tell you some of that, but think about all that land because that plan led to the development of multiple sections of Grassland Estates, Grand Ridge, Los Patios, the Nueva Vista Golf Course, numerous commercial and residential developments that are now home to H-E-B, Sam's Club, Lowe's, Chevron, Oxy, EOG, multiple hotels and commercial restaurants, Abell Junior High, Scarborough Elementary, the Scarborough Sports Complex, C.J. Kelly Park, Stonegate Fellowship, and Crestview Baptist Church. Folks, that's a huge swath of our community, and this man was involved in bringing all of that to make it a reality along with members of the family. In addition to serving as chairman of the Midland Chamber in multiple terms on the Chamber's board of directors, Doug served as president of the Texas Industrial Development Council and was a longtime leader for our community and the state in the Southern Industrial Development Council. I could go on and on about the projects Doug helped promote and for our community, but I'll leave it by saying that any conversation about economic development in Midland, Texas in the last 100 years has to include conversation about this man. Please join me in welcoming this year's honoree, Doug Henson.
Grant, thank you very much for those kind words. I almost didn't recognize that was me through some of them. We go back a long time, and it's been a real fun trip. I will cherish this award for a lifetime. It took a lifetime probably to achieve what you just read. I'm not sure I should be credited for doing all of that, but nonetheless, it's been a real enjoyable friendship and ride. I would tell you that there are three things I would like to discuss with this award. They all center around the Chamber of Commerce, which beginning in early 70s, I was president of Midland JCs, and the JCs had an ex officio position on the Chamber board. So that was my intro to the Chamber of Commerce. Not only that, it was my intro to a lot of community leaders, which I fully, to this day, respect and appreciate what they've done for this community and how they helped me. Some of those would be Bob Truitt and Fred Tyler, your boss. Bob Truitt was a lobbyist for Texas Electric Service Company, and Fred Tyler was executive director of the Midland Chamber of Commerce. Those two gentlemen through time became a mentor of mine, and I appreciate you saying that I'm a mentor in your life. I also respect this award from the standpoint of Marvin Wynn, who the award was named after. Marvin and I go back into the mid-'70s in an officer retreat for the Southern Industrial Development Council, which he was president at the time and I was a director. I admired his leadership during that weekend and gained a great deal of skills patterned after his management skill, and we lost a great man when he passed away. I think he and his wife made home here and made a difference in this community, and I admire to this day his friendship and his leadership and his belief and trust in me and a lot of other Midlanders. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize my wife, who is also here. You've heard the adage, behind every good man is a strong woman. We've been married 55 years, and she's been by my side every day, those years, and especially now that I have broken my shoulder and we had to do this virtually in order to accommodate myself in the condition I'm in currently. I apologize for not wearing a suit. As I told Bobby, this is a real stress on me not to be present and not to be healthy and accept this award, which is here between us. It's a beautiful award and quite heavy, so we won't move it around that much. But my wife, as I said, has been by my side and my biggest fan my entire business career here in Midland. She's attended so many functions where she knew nobody, and that's a hard act to follow or to do when you walk in a room with 20, 30, 40, 50, 200 people and don't know anybody, so I appreciate that. But once again, thank everybody involved. I did not mention Robert Rendell, who was the gentleman that I understand nominated me. It means the world to me, and I'll remember it for the rest of my life. Thank you very much.
I know Mr. Henson is watching virtually today, and so we thank you for your many years of dedicated service and a well-deserved award. So now, in my last official act as board chair, it's my pleasure to ask Mr. Chad McAllister to join me on the stage for the passing of the gavel.
Yeah.
Didn't ever call back or followed up.
I don't know what you're talking
I thought you said you.
Chad, to you has come a very special honor as chair of the Midland Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. This honor comes with a great deal of responsibility. Yours is a position of leadership, not only to the membership and the Board of Directors, but also to the entire community. As the chair, you shall be the legislative head of the chamber and shall preside at all the meetings of the membership and the Board of Directors. You will be the chief spokesperson of the organization on official statements of policy, and you should always seek ways of making the chamber a more effective organization to better serve the needs of the membership and the community. If you're willing to accept these obligations and responsibilities, please respond by saying, "I do."
I do.
It's my great pleasure to now pass the gavel and declare Mr. Chad McAllister as the duly installed Chair of the Chamber of Commerce for 2020-2021. Thank you. The podium is now yours. Thank you, Wesley. In my first official act as board chair, I would like to thank Wesley for his leadership this past year in what was a very volatile year, to say the least. Wesley, to express our appreciation for your service as board chair, a donation will be made in your name to Reflections Ministries. I also want to express my appreciation to Bobby and to the Chamber Board for providing me with this opportunity to serve the Chamber in the great city of Midland. I'm excited, I'm energized, and I look forward to working with Bobby and the fantastic Chamber staff in the year to come. Finally, I would like to welcome Mayor Patrick Payton to the stage to deliver a State of the City address. Mayor Payton began his journey as mayor in January of this year and has been met with challenges unlike any other. We appreciate your leadership during this time, this difficult season, and thank you for taking the time to be with us here today.
Appreciate it very much. Thanks. Can I move this? Good. It's good to be with all of you, and I feel like if we haven't recognized you or clapped for you yet, we might as well. We've recognized everybody else here today. So, Chad, you left your gavel up here, but I'll put it down here, okay? It's really great to be here. All of you who are online, I want to welcome you, and thank you for being here. I know my family is online and watching, and in honor of my father-in-law, when I went into ministry, he told me, he said, I just want to remind you, I've never heard a bad, short sermon. And so, as Wesley said, I'd be preaching here in just a minute. I want to invite you to take your Bibles out. I'm just kidding. But the other thing I was told by a mentor was to be brief, be good, and be gone. And my wife said, slow down. You always talk too fast. So let's take this time together. It's an honor to be here. I would have never expected to be here. And I don't think any of us would have expected where we are when we think back on the last year. And some of my early notes as I was writing them down, 1 year ago we were in full campaign mode. My favorite part of my entire life was campaigning, and that is a lie. And so I was out campaigning and doing all the things everybody told you you're supposed to do and having debates with tremendous opponents and having a great time. And I think we had something like 12 different debates. And just to let all of you in on something between Mr. Morales and Ms. Cudd and myself, we finally met one time at one of the debates. And I pulled him aside, and we were looking at each other, and I said, you think everybody knows what we're going to say now? We've met 12 times, and we made an agreement that we would not agree to any more debates. And so that was the way we were going to do that. But we were in full speed. I mean, if you remember back in August of last year, every time we were in a campaign event, every time we were talking, all you could talk about was how great things were. And there were some of you in this room who said, now get ready, it's going to go south one day. But you didn't know how south. You didn't know it was going to be this south. You just thought the oil industry would change again. And we couldn't think of enough promises to make to you as politicians about what we were going to do. The only promise that you wanted to hear us make was we were going to keep your taxes low out here. And so we kept debating, and everybody was excited about what was going to happen. And we went all through the fall, and the campaign took place, and then we had this amazing election in November. And then comes January, and I'm able to stand in this building across the hall and give a speech. By the way, I just saw my wrist. I just want to let you know it doesn't matter what phase you're in. I'll hug you, stay away from you, or whatever it might be as far as this thing is concerned. And ignore social media tomorrow when everybody talks about who had their masks on and who didn't. So that's another issue. But we get to January, and I'm giving a speech about what we can do, and the sky's the limit and everything else. And January goes by, and February goes by, and we're all just singing the praises of West Texas and the Midland of how great it is. And then one day I'm sitting there, and I wrote the note down, and it's March 8th. It's 6 o'clock in the evening, and my youngest son lives in Houston, and he's in the financial markets and the financial industry. And I don't know what I'm watching on TV. I'm just sitting there just trying to relax. It's Sunday night. And he texts me this message. He says, things are getting ugly. You may not remember that evening. If you're in the financial markets, you know what was happening on that particular Sunday evening as things began to go south for our industry. And yes, it's our industry. Then I woke up the next morning, and he texted me this, trading halted. And he knows some of these things before we're aware of them, and he's filling me in on some things. And so all of us can remember that Monday and Tuesday of that week. Anybody who doesn't remember it wasn't here or wasn't alive. And we remember as I was talking to some reporters from literally Europe, and they said, what was it like that particular week? And I said, you've never seen a region grow silent. You remember as we drove around, and this was before COVID hit, and everybody sensed, oh no, we didn't know what was happening. And we'd also heard about this thing called COVID-19 or a coronavirus. And you and I, all alike, said to ourselves, oh, it's just going to be another flu, no big deal. So I went away on a business trip that particular week. And on that Friday, I woke up in my hotel room, and I have a city phone now and my personal phone, worst two things in my entire life. And both of them are ringing like crazy. Text messages from the city, text messages from other places, people making phone calls. I ended up canceling every appointment I had in Oklahoma City and in Tulsa. Found out even then I couldn't get a flight home. So I called the company I was renting a car from, and I said, how bad are you going to hose me to drive this back to West Texas? And they said, we're going to proudly charge you $300 for that drive. And so I was thankful for that. My mayor's salary covered that, don't worry. And so I began this drive back to West Texas, and I tell people that I was on the phone so much coming back. And I'm just painting the story of where we've been, because where we're going to go really comes out of the lessons we're learning right now of where we've been and who we are. And I think I only heard 2 or 3 songs consecutively in my car in a 7-hour drive that I wasn't on the phone. And all of you were doing the same thing. And meetings started and things began to happen. And who would have ever known in a January when we're all being sworn into office, and a year before that when we're singing the praises of our region, who would have imagined I would have had the distinct pleasure to be the first mayor to ever shut the city down? To be the first mayor, as I was walking down the hall with Council John Onemiller, and I said, has there ever been an emergency declaration signed in this city that shut this place down? And all of us can remember the rumors and the crazy things that were happening and were coming out of Washington, D.C. and what was going to happen. And we began to watch as this whole region shut down. Can you remember driving downtown in the late spring and wondering what happened to the traffic? And all of you who complained about Big Spring would have given anything to just drive down a busy Big Spring. It started to look like it looked to me back in 1999 when I moved here, and oil was $9 a barrel the day my wife and I moved in. And you could go downtown 5 minutes before an appointment and still find a parking space. You remember those days? And so now we'd shut it down. And now here we are today. You don't need me to remind you of where we are today. You don't need me to remind you of our economic stance right now. You know all the numbers. Everything's down. We're not looking around thinking about how everything is up. We're not looking around saying we have turned a corner and now it's just like it was a year ago. You know what sales tax are like. They're down. You know what's happening in your businesses. You know what's happening in our industry. And we're looking ahead and we're trying to see some light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm here to tell you today, the only light at the end of the tunnel is us. It's you and me. It's the citizen shareholders of this city. Because the fact of the matter is, if you were to ask me how I feel about Midland, and I talked to another reporter the other day, and I don't know where this guy was from. They've been from all over, Minnesota. Why did I just pick out Minnesota? I guess that was yesterday. Belgium, some guy was here from Belgium. I still can't read the article that he wrote. He sent it to me, but I was like, thank you, I can't read that. But it's a great picture. And so when someone asked me, what do you think about Midland? I said, well, I believe the future and the present is strong for Midland. As a matter of fact, I don't believe it's just strong. I think it's filled with hope. And if you even go beyond that, I think our future is one that could literally be historic. Because if you look back on who we are, every time we are confronted with challenge, every time we are confronted with what's impossible, every time another haymaker comes our way, every time the world and this country says it's over for Midland, Texas, we get up and we come back even better. And when I look at what I've learned over the last year, when I look at what I've seen in Midlanders, when I look towards the future, I want to tell you the things that give me hope. And I want to tell you the things that I hope give you hope. And I want to tell you that I think our future is strong. I've written in my notes over and over again, it's strong, it's hopeful, and I literally believe it's historic. Let me give you a couple of reasons why I believe that. And the first one is something that I said all throughout the campaign, and it's our values. It is what we value here in West Texas. When I think about those values and I think about what guides us, because whether you think about it or not, every decision you make and everything you do is guided by your values. Everything you stand for is guided by, to put it this way, what you believe. which will determine what you will do. It's not just an empty phrase to put on a poster in your office and people think that you're encouraging them. Your values guide you. When I look at West Texas, and I've only been here 20 or 21 years, some of you have been here a whole lot longer than that. But I'll tell you what I've observed. I've observed a value of a faith in and a love for God. This is more than just a religious place. This is a place that in all of our different ways, in all of our different denominations, regardless if you were a Southern Baptist like I was and believed you had everything right, or you were a Methodist, it didn't matter. But our faith and our love in God that transcends what you can see in other places. In fact, the longer I lived here, the more I realized people really mean it when they say, I love God, which means it drives the next value, which is our love and our care for one another, to hold each other up, to encourage each other, to do what's right for each other. And this third value I would list is our patriotism, our love of country, our love of state, and our love of this city. I'm telling you, this is a place that if you mess with our country, if you mess with our state and you mess with our city, we'll fight you over it. People don't just fly old flags from decades ago because they think it's neat. They mean it. Even more now, if you see them driving around and they see a sign that says, come and take it, I'm not going to come talk to them about their mask. Are you going to come talk to them about their mask? I mean, this is the kind of place. We love country. We stand for the flag. We kneel for our God, and we serve one another. A place of great faith, a place of great love, a place of great patriotism. Those aren't just words we throw around. That's the kind of people we are. And when we look back on our history, that's the kind of people that build a country. It's the kind of people that build a state. It's the kind of people who look at a city on its knees, down on its face, and say, that's all right. Because what we believe and what we believe in each other and for each other and what we believe about this country, these are the things that will drive us to overcome any setback in our city that makes us strong. Our values are why I think we will be strong. And we have great hope. And we have a great history. But I would also tell you that our economic engine will be strong. You know, when I became the mayor, I'm going to throw Bobby Burns under the bus. He called me and he said, some of you, I heard you said, it's good, about time. So I get this phone call from Bobby and he says, you ought to go to the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I said, okay, that'd probably be a pretty good deal in Washington, D.C., and just go hang out with a bunch of mayors. We probably all think alike and all have the same views and the same values and everything else. So I get to Washington, D.C., and that's where I get to meet the mayor of Los Angeles, Mr. Garcetti. What a piece of work. And then I met another mayor, and I found out all these mayors hate oil and gas. So I decided to go to the Conference on Environmental Protection while I was there. This was at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And so I have my speech ready because as a mayor, I get to pull up to the table with a microphone and I get the chance to speak. And when I get a chance to speak, I mean, I was a Baptist pastor. Hold on. And so I have my speech ready, and I hear all the, you know, Mayor Garcetti's up there talking about how he's going to start paving Los Angeles with environmentally friendly, cool asphalt. I was like, you are, well, I'll stop right there. And so I just listen, and I'm waiting for open mic time. We're there for an hour and a half. We get no open mics. So this is all over. This is one of the largest things, you know, because it's environmentalism and people need something to live for, so they're going to live for the environment. And so we're walking out and there's this gaggle in the press, or a press gaggle, whatever you want to call it, press joke, whatever you want to call it. And so I walk through that. You know, they're not stopping me. They don't know who I am. Although I did have an overcoat on with a pin on it that said, I love fossil fuels. And so I'm walking through there. See, I'm a disciple. I'm all in, man. And so then I stop. Like if I could show you, I just walk, and I went, all right, I'll do it. I mean, I don't know if it was the Lord or Jiminy Cricket, but I just turned around, and some of you are too young to even know what that means. You remember Jiminy Cricket? And so I turn around, and I stand in the middle of the gaggle, and I say, are any of you interested in having a conversation with someone who realizes you can't get to a green future unless you partner with oil and gas? Do any of you want to have that conversation? And they said, well, who do we talk to? And I said, right here. So we started a conversation. But here's what I discovered. Most of these people that talk about this industry know nothing about our economic engine or our industry. As I sat and talked to a reporter from another conservative stronghold, Texas Monthly Magazine, we were sitting there and he had his microphone in front of me with the fuzzy thing over it to keep the wind out. And he eventually got to the issue of how we're killing the world and all this kind of stuff. And I said, I said, do you realize that that little fuzzy thing on your microphone isn't possible without the oil and gas industry? I said, do you realize your fancy Vans tennis shoes can't have a rubber sole on or even be put together without the oil and gas industry? And I said, and if you've got a Tesla parked outside, I think it's still got tires, it still needs lubricants, and the fact of the matter is it has over 1,000 pounds of oil byproducts sitting in the dashboard. I said, so what do you want to tell me? I said, the reality is you can't get to the American dream without the oil and gas industry. And no industry, unlike our industry, has taken care of the environment and taken responsibility when they must, like our industry. And so what we've begun to do is I've begun building a coalition of energy city mayors with the help of the Petroleum Strategic Partnership and other oil and gas companies throughout this nation. So we, as mayors of these centers of energy production all over North Dakota and Texas and Pennsylvania and all over, are going to descend on Washington, D.C. when we can finally go. I know one place we'll find Nancy Pelosi getting her hair done. And so we will be able to go find them. And we will be able to sit down as the mayors and say, listen to what this industry does. Listen to the fact that our industry is the security of our nation and our state and our cities. Listen to the fact that it's our industries that are doing what must be done to protect the environment more than people who are burning down cities to destroy the environment. That our industry is the economic engine. And I have great hope because our industry will continue to innovate. And every time somebody says it's the end of the industry, we all know this industry goes away, the American dream goes away. And so it's time for us to continue to fight for that, be proud of that, and talk about it as much as you can. I'm hopeful because of our values, our economic engine, and briefly let me mention some more. I'm hopeful because of our governance. I've only been in office 7 or 8 months. It feels like 7 or 8 years, but I've gotten to know the city staff, and we have an amazing city staff. We have a group that wants to do the right thing all the time. They're ready to get behind strategic planning. We've talked about that. We have a city council that's ready to get behind strategic planning so we can have a vision that can be applied over the next several years. I am very proud of the governance of our city. I'm proud of the fact that we've been able to secure water, but we've secured water future because of the work before us. That we've been able to do a partnership with the MPO and look forward to an interstate system you haven't even heard anything about. But we've been able to come together as Midland and Odessa and plan these things. Our city governance is strong. Our city leadership is strong, with the exception of the guy who sits in the middle on Tuesdays. Our leadership is great. Your council is great. And our governance will be just fine. But that leads me to really my favorite part about why I think our future is strong, and it's our actions. It's the legacy and the pattern of our actions. Before I move into that, I want to remind you, the worst thing that can happen today is that you count on the promises I make to you. The most important promises made today are the promises we make to each other for this city and this region. The promises that come out of a city hall or Austin or Washington, D.C. are empty without the values and the promises we make to each other. These are the promises that matter. And when I look at our city and I talk about our values and I talk about our governance and I talk about the things that we do, this legacy and pattern of action is why I can sit back and have to trim multiple slides out of this when I think about who you are and what you've done and what we will do. Let me just list a few. The action of our West Texas calm and grit in the face of a pandemic. You know, early on we were talking about face masks and everything else and what we do and what we don't do. I knew early on, in the midst of this pandemic, that if we just told Midlanders what was important, eventually, because of their values, they would do the right thing. I started getting email from all 50 states. I was something on the line of a murderer or Hitler trying to destroy the world because I didn't mandate certain things. And by the way, I'm convinced now, and I know Congressman Conaway knows this, and Pfluger, you're going to figure this out. The dictionary they use for hate emails has a whole lot more words in it than the dictionary for nice emails. It's amazing. I mean, nice emails are like, good job, appreciate you. Hate emails usually begins with a curse word and something that I resemble, and I think the last one I got said, I hope you get COVID and die and there's no room in the hospital and all this kind of stuff. So anyways, all 50 states, it's amazing how popular we are. But the fact of the matter is I could get online and I could tell Midlanders, we're not going to come look for you, but you know the right thing to do. And obviously there's always going to be people who think we're not doing enough, but the fact of the matter is when it comes to this COVID issue, we're on the downtrend again. And we've done this twice. And now we'll keep the pressure on Austin and make sure the governor does what he needs to do and realize this is a free state and a free country, and we need to be able to govern ourselves as best as we can and not depend on anyone else. But the actions of our calm and our grit in the midst of this time. What are some other actions? Well, quite frankly, our service to one another, and I'll try to keep this brief. I don't see certain people here, but huge kudos and thanks to our hospital and hospital system for everything they have done throughout this entire pandemic. Russell Myers, the staff, and everyone else, and I believe that deserves our recognition. So would you applaud what they have done over this time? I would also speak of Libby Campbell and the West Texas Food Bank. Many of you have no idea what happened when this pandemic started, and you could drive towards the West Texas Food Bank, and lines would be a quarter of a mile to a half mile, if not longer. People throughout the Permian Basin, as the West Texas Food Bank pulled up the reins for everyone, pulled in coverage for everyone, and fed this region. Libby Campbell and her team did everything in their power. They continued to work, they continue to work, and they continue to be the example nationwide of what a food bank is supposed to do. And many of you volunteered, and you showed up, and you did what was possible. Your companies gave. Truckloads arrived. Folks, I have faith in the strength of our future and hope in our history because of even the picture of something like the West Texas Food Bank. I'm going to ask you one more time. Would you show them how much you appreciate the West Texas Food Bank? I would move on to say with our friends from Odessa here, all of us can remember 12 months ago. All of us can remember hearing some things on the news beginning to show up on the bottom of the screen. But once again, when people come after us, we go towards each other. We see two communities come together in love and compassion in the midst of a tragedy. These are the things that give me hope. These are the things that make me realize we are strong. That no matter what comes at us, we go towards each other. Even though we grieve what happened a year ago, it still speaks to who we are and what we'll do. How we honor one another and the action of how we have been honoring one another. Not only was there an economic crisis, not only a health crisis, but racial unrest. And I'm thankful for Councilman Norman. I'm thankful for my black friends who I was able to sit down and have conversations with. Because once again, in a West Texas way, and the reason I have hope in what we will be is because we will sit down and talk to each other rather than fighting each other first. That we will listen to one another. That we will seek to understand before seeking to be understood, as the late Covey says all the time. We're not getting everything perfect just yet. But a city that's willing to look across racial barriers and look back on racial history and actually have a conversation with each other and say, we will get better. We will be a shining light. That's the kind of city you know is strong. That's the kind of city you know gives hope. That's the kind of city that's going to have a great, great future. I would go on to say our action towards educating our most vulnerable, which are our students. And I give great respect to our school board because I realize that our school board and our school district comes under constant attack. But the reality is the education issue is our issue. It's not their issue. It's all of our issue. And even though I can say to somebody when they call me and say, Mr. Mayor, would you do something about the school system? It gives me great pleasure to say I have no vote in that. But at the same time, I have a voice and you have a voice, and we have a responsibility. And at this particular time, even though it's been very difficult and everybody is aware of what's going on, the mark of this great city is when it comes down to doing what is best for our students. Remember what I said. It's not the promises Rick Davis or an administration makes to you. It's the promise we make to each other. The promise we make to each other that we will not let 30,000 students go backwards under our watch. That we will bury old hatchets, that we will forget what happened in the past when you were a school board member or what happened in the 70s or 80s. That doesn't matter. What matters in this city is that we are as famous for what we do above the ground as we are for what we do below the ground. And that means we come together for the education of the next generation. And that means that is what will make us strong. That is why we will have hope. And that is why we will have a great future. And that is what gives me hope as well. The last thing I would speak of is the amazing confidence that I have and watching you and how you have backed the men and women in blue in this community. How you have stood behind our emergency workers. How you have stood behind Chief Herman and Chief Blumenauer. As a matter of fact, I called Chief Herman the other day. And I said, "Hey, Chief, how you doing? I know you're short, but can I talk to you for just a minute?" That's an inside joke if you don't know who he is. But I said, "I want to let you know, any amount of money you need, anything you need, I'll take it to council. Just go start putting bulletin boards up all over this country in places that want to defund police, and we'll bring them here and give them the best life possible." And I said, "You just let me know if I need to make a commercial." But I also want to talk about something else related to what you've done that you don't even know about. Ever since 2015, when I became aware of something called America's Warrior Partnership, which is the premier organization in this country for veterans. I began working with Tracy Bentley and the Permian Strategic Partnership, and it won't be long through the work of America's Warrior Partnership, if we do what we're supposed to do, that the Permian Basin will be the premier area for veterans to retire and go to work. It'll happen. It'll be soon. It's already happening right underneath you, and you don't even know it's happening. Because you know what veterans like? A place that has values like we have. They love to hear us say, we have a challenge. We have some issues. And they love to see that when they show up, people say, "Thank you for your service," rather than sneer at them and laugh at them. It won't be long. This will be the premier location for veterans worldwide to retire to. With our values strong, our economy very necessary, our governance will stay conservative, our actions are consistent and moving towards others, tomorrow is strong. Perhaps you haven't heard me talk about things you wanted me to talk about. Yeah, we're going to keep building roads. I think we're going to close Golf Course Road again, just so you could complain about that. We're trying to close as many roads as we can, especially the ones you need to go down. I'll tell you a story. I had a guy come up to me. I won't tell you where, and he was drunk, and he decided he was going to start getting in my face about Golf Course Road, and his buddies were behind him. I think they saw what was coming, and I mean, he is up one side and down the other. You are the worst because that road should be open. I demand you tell me when that road's going to open. And I let him, keep going and keep going, and I said, "Are you done?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, we were going to open that road next week, but I'm going to delay it 3 months because of you." And then I walked away. Businesses will open up again. We will thrive again. Businesses will come to this town. They cannot help but come to this place because if we believe what we believe about ourselves and do the things we must do, it will attract business. It's tough now. Nobody's making fun of that. Nobody's making light of that. It's tough everywhere. But I can tell you what people are looking for. Is they're looking for a city that reminds them of America. They're not looking for a city that despises America. They're looking for a region that reminds them of the America that they have grown to love, that people have died for, and we embody those values. No place in this state or this country exhibits the values like we do out here in West Texas. Homes will keep getting built. We'll keep trying to find places to build homes, and we'll build apartments, and people will have places to live. And you'll complain about your property taxes and the valuation of your home. We're used to it. Just keep going. We'll keep doing these things. These things will remain the same. We will continue to plan. We weren't able to have a council retreat like we wanted to, but it's coming up very soon. So proud of your council that has already submitted their values and their list of priorities to me. So proud of our city staff that's working on these future projects. We're not without our faults and shortcomings. We're all fully aware of the fact that we have room to grow. But I know this about you. When it's time to change, we fight. We will change. We may be a little slow to get there, but when it's time to change, we will. And nobody will change with a greater heart than we will. I'll conclude with this. You'll remember a couple of weeks ago, a guy named President Trump came to town. It was a pretty big deal. I was so proud of our city that when the police department asked people not to park along the highway and watch Air Force One land, they did what West Texans do. They lined up on the highway and watched Air Force One land, just like masks. So I was one of those who went out there, 5 hours early to wait for the president to show up. Got there and went inside this really nice tent. Only in West Texas do you air-condition tents. And so I went in and sat with a couple of hundred of my best friends for 5 hours. And I noticed after we'd all talked to each other as much as we possibly could have, what do you talk about for 5 hours? That we're not going to have college football this year? Actually, we're going to have it. How great is that we're going to have college football? How great is that we're going to have college football? Okay. Just making sure you're Texans. And so I'm sitting there in this seat, and everybody's just sort of, once you're about 3 hours in waiting, you just kind of think, is life worth it? And I start looking around, and I'm kind of up close to the front, but I start turning around, and let me tell you what I notice. And the image stuck with me, because the memory of the day was not the fact the president came in and gave us a speech. That was great, fantastic. But as I told you, it's not the promises made to us by Washington, D.C., Austin, or the city of Midland. It's the promises we make to each other. And I looked around and I noticed there were a whole lot less of these. There were a few people in suits. But you know what I saw? I saw flame retardant clothing. I saw bandanas. I saw cowboy hats and snapback trucker hats. I saw people sticking another dip in their mouth. I saw West Texas. I saw these people. Who love their country, who would do anything for it, who have great pride in who they are. When the president came, they gave him his honor, and he gave them their honor. I saw him recognize young people that started their jobs pushing tools, but the American dream had come true for them here in West Texas. And they were proud of it, and they weren't afraid of it. And they knew that what they did out there in the oil patch provided for the security of this city, state, nation, and even the world. They knew that we don't make a big deal out of who we are, but in the world stage, we're huge. And we are the epicenter of that. I sat with the backbone of this city. I sat in the presence of the backbone of this country. Because while people yell and shout, these people left and said, what can I do and how can I do it? And show me where to go. And finally, the last thing that happened that I just noticed this past Monday, I had a chance to tour the park that's right outside these doors. I'm going to tell you something, folks. I came home and I told my wife after that, I said, that's going to be the most magnificent place to be within a 4 to 5 hour radius of this place and maybe around this state and country. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be too small, but it's going to be amazing because people are going to want to be there. It's just an amazing place. We made our way around and we get to the far west side where the mesa is, where this historic tree is there, this symbolic tree. And as I'm being given the tour, they read to me what was going to be on the plaque sitting next to the tree. Let me read it to you. The southern live oak tree sits high up on the mesa to welcome park visitors from near and far. The tree was chosen as the symbol of the park. Would you replace the word park, folks, as you listen to me with the word city? The tree was chosen as the symbol of the city to represent unity, strength, wisdom, and growth. Our hope is for Midlanders and visitors to gather under its shade for years to come. How funny is that to talk about gathering under the shade in West Texas? There is no shade, but the sun shines bright. So does our future. So I finished with just these words to you that I'll be careful to read. Ladies and gentlemen, this promise of the tree is the promise of Midland. Our vision spans to the horizon and beyond. Our invitation is for all who desire to come and sit in the shade of our ideals, of our strength, our limitless hope, and ultimately in our historical future, a future wherein and whereby all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. These are rights that are loved by us, cherished by us, fought for by us, and embodied right here in West Texas. Our future is strong. It is filled with hope, and it will be historic because of who we are and what we'll do. God bless you, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor Payton, and thank you all for being with us here today. Let's continue to make Midland the very best place to live, to work, to do business, and to visit. Thank you very much.